Hey, good morning. This is Catherine Perry, and I'll be your host for the Daily One Command. I don't know if you have had a chance to tune in yet, but we are doing a series this week. This is part 3 of 4 of really in examining an affirmation and how can we turn it into transformation. Let's get into it. So, what we're titling this series is Affirming a New Potential. And this is part 3 of 4, as I said before. And I'm going to be creating a special mini playlist for this so it's easier for you to find all 4 parts. And I will link it in the end cards once we get this series all done. So, the one command session today, and as it's been this whole week, is for affirming and commanding a new potential. And what we're doing is we're looking at and one particular affirmation. And this is the one that we're working with. It's not even a great affirmation. It's not really strong and powerful. It's not one that you would maybe paste everywhere, but I'm going to read it to you for the sake of the recording that it's today I align myself with freedom, growth, and joy. That sounds lovely. And we talked about a lot of things around this idea. And number one, when we make an affirmation, it's supposed to be affirming a state of being, a decision that you've made. Like, I'm getting feedback from the world that this is what I want my life to be about. This supports it. This supports it. But actually, what's happening for many people, and what happened for me, is I'd see that affirmation and I would be filled with longing. And it would be like, yes, that's how it should be. That's how I want it to be. And what immediately happened in that thought, instead of it being a new idea for myself, and what I've heard from a lot of my clients and what I've noticed in the world, is immediately there's this split, this separation happens between where you are now and this really beautiful idea of how you want to be, who you want to be, right? And what is in the place now is suffering, pain, judgment, a feeling of lack or scarcity. And we might even just call that a lack of capacity to make change. And we're going to go into that greater idea. But what happens in this? What are we putting in the space? Well, we have this ideal version of ourselves in our mind and that we're somehow not living up to. So we're starting out failed before we even begin. The idea of an affirmation is to be aspirational, to remind us of who we want to believe, who we want to be, and what we believe is possible, right? But it becomes this idealized, idolized version of ourself. It becomes an idol, not a goal. And what do we put in the space in between? Longing, desire, maybe shame, frustration. What do we put between us where we are now and where we want to be? And a lot of times, what we put is obstacles. Well, I would be happy, joyful, and free if it weren't for, I could align myself if I didn't have to work so darn hard, if I wasn't trapped in this relationship or in this situation, if no matter what I did, I couldn't make a change, and if I weren't so stressed all the time. That's what we fill in a lot of times. I'm going to take a second to remind people that I would love to see your comments or questions. And so be sure and like the StreamYard application that's in the description. It's at the very bottom of the description of this video. And if you're just watching by YouTube, I should be able to see your comment. So, oops, what did I do? Something shifted dramatically here. There we go. Let me see. Who's with us today? Good morning, Miss Kathy. Good morning, Miss Jody. And we've got some other folks on the call too. So let's get into this. We know that we have an ability to live a greater life of freedom, that we have the ability to grow, and that we have a capacity for joy because of one reason: we want it. There is a desire for it. And if you want it, there's a capacity within you to create it. It actually resides right in your own DNA. I just did a talk last night talking about mastering the 6 steps of the one command. If you want to get that replay, message me and I will make sure you get the link to that. Okay. But that potential is already there. And Asara Lovejoy, who's the creator of the one command, says it this way: it is our hopes, wants, and desires that give us the clue to our potential. The rest of the story that I believe is that it is our fears and doubts that tell us who we think we are. And so we have this split of where we are now and where we want to be. And there's this invisible line that we can't seem to cross. And no matter how hard we try, we get stopped at the same point. And that causes a lot of frustration. And eventually, it causes shame. And eventually, resignation. We just give up. So, how can we do this? How can we think about this aspiration? Well, this is what we do. First, we want to think about it in a new way. If you're thinking about the same thing the same way over and over again, you know what's going to happen. You're going to get the same results, but we get trapped in our thinking. So let's ask that question. If this affirmation became a reality in your life, if this affirmation became a reality, how would your life be different? If you were living in alignment with your true self, living in freedom, enjoying growth, and living in that greater state of joy, what would be different? And just think about that for a minute. What would be different? Now, when we think about what would be different, we could think about what would be improved. What would you be able to have, be, or do as a result? Is how this is usually framed. What would be different? What would you be able to have, be, or do as a result? So if you were living in greater alignment, freedom, growth, and joy. Wow. I mean, do you think you would take more chances? Do you think you might feel more confident knowing that no matter what you do, it's all for your joy, for your growth? And if you were doing it in a state of joy, from that higher vibration of oneness, knowing that all things are working together for your good, do you think there'd be a greater sense of satisfaction and a sense of purpose to what you're doing? Would you have a sense of significance? Wow, what could happen? But when we just look at regular affirmation and we're looking at aspirationally, we're never really giving ourselves a chance to think that in a neutral way, in a way that we're observing. We very often, as humans, not you and me necessarily, but most people, many, I know I have, again, go into self-criticism and comparison and start affirming and reaffirming all the limitations rather than the possibility. So, what would be different? If this affirmation became a reality, what in your life would be different? And we think, what would you be able to have, be, or do as a result? Okay. But then, what would no longer be true in your life? What would no longer be a part of your life? Would there be relationships that you would no longer be in? Are there activities you would no longer feel compelled to do? What would your quality of life be like? Is your living alignment to this? We think about what would you say yes to, what would be possible, but what would you be free to say no to? Maybe that's a better way to think about it. What would you feel free to say no to? And this is what keeps us stuck. Very often, we don't feel like we have the ability to say no to certain circumstances. Now, we know that we're going through growth patterns. We know that all things are working together for our good. But there's situations in our life that we don't feel like we have the ability to really change because it's something outside of ourselves. So let's get into this for a minute. I want to invite you to stop thinking about, as you're looking at your life, in terms of, I have a belief about this, yes or no. It is important to know what your beliefs are, but that's really a mental construct. You want to think about in terms of, what is your feeling state? Okay. So let's not think in terms of, I believe I can have money. I don't believe it's possible. But let's think about in terms of capacity and upper limits. Okay. An example of upper limits would be that income level that you stay in. And it seems like no matter what you do, how hard you work, you never get past a certain income level. Or even if you do bust through it, something happens and that money goes away, right? Or it's your capacity to be yourself and be the a calm, rational, loving, giving person because you are still reactive to things. And there's something that no matter what you do, you keep reacting. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about in these upper limits. And the upper limits really has to do with our conditioning, our beliefs, our emotions. So Neville Goddard says this, and I apologize for the quality of the slide here. But only as one is willing to give up his present limitations and identity can he become that which he desires to be. So going back to this, you're really talking about, I am. What's really speaking to you is who you want to be. You want to be a person who is living in alignment with your true self, loving and accepting yourself. And from that greater state of being, you have more freedom, you're able to grow, and you're doing it all in a state of joy. So when we're thinking about this greater, this capacity, this upper limits, where do your limitations usually take place? Like, I work a lot with clients who have a limited vision of their possibility, and that's why I'm the big vision coach. They know they want to make a change. They really don't see how. I was working with a client yesterday, and we were really drilling down because she wants to change, and she's creating a freedom-based lifestyle, and she has a desire to do it through a particular skill set she has and be a freelancer. And she's being told all these things she has to do and the way it has to happen, and she really didn't know what the options were, but the only feedback she was getting was, that's not right, I don't like it, that feels restrictive. And what was lacking was she had a limited vision. We had to increase her capacity to create a greater vision, and then to learn how to operate in that vision. Some of us don't have an ability to create good boundaries. Embodiment has to do with how are we living, moving, and breathing in our own value system. Structure in our life would be the ability to create order or systems that support you, that help you function and meet all your obligations, and also make it possible for you to thrive in your genius zone. This is a big one: energy. Being able to manage your own energy, but to be able to um, protect yourself from the energy from others. And then we know about money, our emotions. We have a limitation. We hit our upper limits or capacity on purpose. Visibility is a huge one that stops a lot of business people, women in particular, because there's this fear of being seen and everything that could mean. And so visibility could mean that you're not showing up in the world, you're not showing up in your business or in your relationships, you're not keeping agreements, and then even in your own intelligence. So when we talk about this, you may hear in the one command world, particularly when we talk about your own greater capacity. Okay, your own greater capacity. And what we're talking about is that part that is not your conditioning, your ordinary thinking. And we could think about this in two terms. One, when we say there's the way you see yourself versus the version that you want to be. And we said that's your, idyllic or idolized self. Well, who's this other part? Well, that other part is your ego self, and it's separate than your I am self. Your I am self is the all-encompassing you, that is you from the barest molecule that makes you you out into the universe and all of that expression. And the way that that's set up is we have, our higher self, our soul, our spirit, then our personality. It all starts coming down, but it's everything. It's I am as the creator. So your name, your true name is I am. Breathe into that for a minute. I am. I am. It's you as God on earth. But then we have this other version of you that has to work and pay bills and is trying to figure this stuff out and struggling and knows that there's something more. That is the me, the THE, me. And the person who has the YouTube channel Serious Joy, I have to give him credit for this, what he called the me go instead of the ego, the me go, what drives me. And but it's the me. So there's the me who is suffering, the me who is limited, which is your smaller conditioned self. Okay. And so if you've watched me on past broadcasts, you've heard me talk about this idea that we can say the me feels limited, the me is afraid, the me feels limited, or is suffering. The me is anxious. The me doesn't have enough money. Okay. And that part is always communicating. Okay. So when we are able to observe from the I am, we go into a state of awareness. Okay. So then when you're aware of the me, I hope that this is landing. If this is making sense, give me a thumbs up or a yes. As we're observing this part of ourselves and we have been judging ourselves and comparing ourselves and making excuses to ourselves, we're disconnected from our I am. We're operating only in our ego. So if we were operating in alignment to our I am, to our greater capacity that is able to embody all of this, that's free to express and know and learn and grow, what would be different? Would you be in alignment? Would you be living in a state of joy? Would there be more freedom? Absolutely. Would there be growth? Yes. And so this is how we can start learning and really looking at these affirmations in a different way. Okay. This is how we can start thinking about when we see an affirmation, when we see these statements, when we see something even out in the world, when we see someone living a life, that we not only, we're not, envy, I think is a good thing because we go, wow, I didn't know I wanted that. Or if we feel a revulsion, go, that is just not me. Those are just clues. That's your inner self going, I want to grow, but not in that direction. Aligned with yourself. And you're learning to have a new conversation with yourself. That greater I am is starting to have a new conversation with that smaller version of you. And in that greater capacity, when we do the one command, when we're meeting that, what happens is we're allowing a space. That's why we go into the 6 steps and we do the command. We're pausing all of our conditioning. We're quieting the mind, all those inner conversations. We're stopping that internal movie that's running, that are all the stories about our life telling us about who we are, how we got here, and why we can or cannot move forward. It pauses all of that and it just connects us directly to the greater I am, our own greater capacity. And we just make space and it gives us a chance to unwind. And so when we make a command that says, I don't know how I align myself with freedom, growth, and joy, or we might even say, I don't know how I am aligned. I am aligned with freedom, growth, and joy. I only know I am now and I am fulfilled. Do you feel the difference in that rather than, oh, yes, here I am and I'm going to repeat this 1,000 times? This takes immediate ownership of this concept. This directs your subconscious mind and your reticular activating system. Your subconscious mind says, if this is true, what else could be true? And it starts taking it and integrating it all the way through your system. And then everything you encounter, you're able to meet yourself and your memories and these old energy in this space of joy, love, and acceptance. Just giving space to that for a moment. And then you're able to meet the world and new possibility and opportunities and adversity from a greater, more empowered state of being. Who's ready to command? Let's go for it. Let me jump through the slides. So I want you to think about what your chief aim is in your life. And right now it may be creating a freedom-based lifestyle. It could be um, just changing, you know, working on your health, your relationships. You're ready to have more fun and freedom in your life. You want to increase your money. Whatever that is, whatever it is that your main goal is in life right now, just think about it. Think about the moment you know that it is fulfilled. So, like if you're commanding for a new house, think about the moment that you pull up into the driveway in your home and you just grab your keys out of the car and you walk in and all your stuff is there and you know that you're home. If you've been struggling with money and you figured out what the missing piece was for you, you figured out your direction, and a big unexpected bill came in and you weren't concerned because you knew you had the money. Or an opportunity to travel to a far off place and you said, well, sure, no problem, let's go. It was easy to say yes. It was easy to address a challenge. Maybe you're commanding for greater health, better health, divine health. What would it be like to wake up in that new body? Jumping up, facing the day. And when you think about your plans, and you would know that you could say yes to whatever came up because you knew you had the physical capacity. Or if you're growing your business and a big opportunity comes in, one bigger than you ever thought was possible, and you knew you could say yes to it because you had the ability to rise up to meet the opportunity, just as you have the ability to rise up and meet any challenge. So just go into that state of being. And our command very simply is this: I don't know how I am now operating in and from my greater capacity. I only know I am now and I am fulfilled. You're already quite grounded. So let's just go for it. We're going to go right into stating the command. Roll your eyes up. Remember to breathe, eyes closed, and you're rolling your eyes up as if you're trying to look up through the top of your head. I don't know how. I am now living from my own greater capacity. I only know I am now and I am fulfilled. And just let that go. Let that expand out to an idea even greater that serves more good in its fulfillment. And just become aware of being back in your body. Let your eyes relax. And now just start actively receiving this new information, this greater state of being from your own higher, greater self, your great I am. And just witness this energy coming into that limited version of yourself. The part of you that is tired, the part of you that's frustrated, the part of you that always has to say no, not now, not yet, or I can't because of your circumstances and conditioning and history and whatever got hooked into your subconscious mind. Just let it go. Let it unwind, unwind, unwind. And just witness that energy coming into you. It may look like light or a download, but just notice how it's coming into you. And now just allow these new ideas, this greater capacity, this increased state of being, start to align and rewind and integrate. And we're going to go back and we're going to think about your chief aim and what it is that you are actively working to change, remove, or improve in your life. As you think about your chief aim, your big goal, how does it feel now? What do you notice when you think about it? Does it feel more possible? Are ideas starting to come in about, hey, how you can make this happen? Or do you have a new awareness about what was stopping you before? Or maybe you just feel still and the revelation will come later, but just be present. Now, what we advise people is you can open your eyes, is that as these ideas come in, get everything written down as quickly as possible because you're going to get flooded with creative ideas and possibilities. But you want to just keep being present to it and then you'll know what the right one is. But also, you want to keep track of your commands and what your awareness was, your new revelation. And then what do we say? That seventh step is inspired action. So be ready for that new idea or that inspiration or the opportunity and go for it. And the other thing I would say too is that when you're looking at you're looking at the world through your new mind, through this greater state of being, this greater capacity, what you're going to notice is you're going to start reading between the lines. You're going to start seeing how patterns are. You're going to start seeing the little, I see little plays and passion plays happen all the time, right? I see the little drama triangles happen. I can see the stories unfolding. But I'm noticing the more I'm working with this, when I get a new teaching, I don't feel a resistance. I have this like ability to have a greater understanding and not just understand what I'm being told, the ability to integrate it and act upon it. And so I wonder what is going to be possible for you. I hope this has been valuable for you today, and I would love to get your feedback. And if you have any questions or you just like this, be sure and like the video, comment, and if you have a question or a response, be sure and put in a little hashtag and then hashtag replay, because I pay attention to that. And I'd love to get your response to today's message. Of course, I help people. I am a life coach. I am a mindset and consciousness coach for business owners, but I work with people of all walks of life. And if I can be of support to you in increasing your capacity, please reach out to me and let's talk about your situation. And you're going to get a lot of awareness. This isn't a session, but we're just going to have a deep conversation about what's going on with you, where you are now, where you want to be. And then if it looks like you're a good fit for me, then we'll have a discussion about how we might work together. It's very low key, low pressure. Okay? So my sweet friends, until next time, this is Catherine Perry, the Big Vision Coach, and I witness your mastery. Bye-bye. Mwah.